and welcome to the very first episode of Metalhead to Head, the show where we put two of metal's finest acts up against one another and judge them in the crudest, most simple way possible and decide who the better band is, much to the ire and disagreement to elitists all over the world. You've read the title. You know what bands we're judging today. It is Morbid Angel.
Their poison lingers.
And Death. Two titans of American death metal. With me today are my guest judges, the best guitarist that you will never hear of, Josh Kerston of Starved of Light.
Ow.
And sitting next to him, this gorgeous individual. His favorite album to work out to is Zodiac by 6 Feet Under. This is John Dernar IV of Violent System. We broke it down into several bits of criteria. The first of which being vocals. So we have David Vincent of Morbid Angel going up against Chuck Schuldiner of Death.
Oh.
I like this like TV voice that I'm doing.
You're doing it, yeah. Chuck Schuldiner. All right. So I picked David Vincent because I don't know his lyrical style, his vocal style. It's just more like raw, pure, dark. It's just really death metal to me. The lyrical content in comparison to Death, it's just like I don't know. I'm more into like the lyrical content around like the occult and like blasphemy and the underworld and stuff, which is like what David Vincent does like really well.
I agree.
You know, I also voted for Dave Vincent. It was tough, I will say that. As you very well know, those are two of my biggest vocal influences. I just, to kind of piggyback off what you're saying, Dave Vincent, I think songwriting, lyrical content and all that, like the whole occult thing is more death metal vibe. Mm-hmm. For sure fits that whole genre a little bit better. I love the way both vocalists progressed as they continued throughout their career, and for me, listening to, I'm gonna say like with Dave Vincent, he was a little bit more raw, started out very raw, and then you can hear it in Blessed Are the Sick. He starts to change things here and there. Forgive me, I can't think of any songs off the top of my head. Like he gets a little bit more.
You can hear it on that first title track, like Fall from Grace.
Yeah.
It's just like he hits a lot harder than he does on anything with the altars.
And and I could just imagine people back then being like, oh, but when it really happens is Domination. Yeah. And you're like, whoa,
Right.
So, which is one of my favorite albums. I mean, it was both these bands were. Big staples throughout. Chuck, was kind of streamlined throughout the whole, early throughout his career, and then obviously like Symbolic and Sound of Perseverance really took off. But.
Mm-hmm. So I voted for David Vincent as well. I've always seen Dave as kind of like the torchbearer for what death metal vocals would become, him and Corpse Grinder together. Mm-hmm. I would throw Chris Barnes in there, just old Chris Barnes, not Chris Barnes. That's where I would go with that, but I would have to give it to David Vincent. I like his lyrics a lot more. Mm-hmm. His delivery is a lot more just guttural and brutal. Mm-hmm. Don't get me wrong, like Chuck Schuldiner, his performance on like Spirit Crusher is phenomenal. Even his cover of Painkiller, his vocals on that are ridiculous.
Yeah, he has crazy range on that.
But gotta give this one to David Vincent. So next we have guitars, more specifically rhythm guitars, so riffs, general songwriting in general. Mm-hmm. So this is Trey Ass of a Goth going up against Chuck Schuldiner. Again.
Why do these guys have these like tough last names?
Well, Schuldiner's not hard. Josh is just like overpronounced.
Yeah, but
Schuldiner.
Yeah, but no. But even like you hear different variations and like Schuldiner or like I mean I don't know.
Well, that's like the whole like cult of personality thing. Everybody always wants to like know something more than someone else. It's like, that's not how you really pronounce it. You pronounce it like this. So
These freaking people.
that's another thing that I have. And
All
this
right, we're
is-
getting a little off topic.
All right,
Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, John. This fucking idiot.
So
Go ahead.
so I'm assuming, or should we?
Yeah, let's
rotate?
go. John,
go ahead.
you start. Who'd you pick
Okay.
for Riffs?
So I picked Trey. You know, we're gonna pass on pronouncing the last name. Riff, songwriting were the criteria. Riffage. Again, I think it just fits more with the classic thought of death metal here. Like,
Wrong. Wrong.
Oh,
I'm
really?
kidding. I'm kidding.
Really? A little bit more, brutal, catchier for the genre. Okay, whereas Chuck is a little bit more intricate, especially later on down the road, as I mentioned before. Trey may be a little bit more. I want to say simplistic, but.
He's got like some of the best groove. in
Yeah, I was
death
gonna say
metal
the
I'm
groove
gonna
definitely, and
disagree
obviously
with you guys.
when
A lot.
well, I'm just saying like when you like Where the Slime Live, just some of that sludgy that dun, 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 dun,
Right.
or like even some of the earlier stuff. Like I find myself just like
I mean, even like,
quagmiring.
which I think a lot of that has to do with Pete Sandoval as well. His
Yeah,
playing playing along with Trey's riffs gave everything a lot of rhythm and groove.
I can. Yeah, they definitely lock in together a lot throughout their catalog.
So you voted for Trey?
Yeah, so I voted for Trey too, but I'm gonna disagree with you guys a little bit on like the simplicity of his riffing and his writing style. I think he like compacts so much into a single riff that I feel like he's a little more complex than Chuck's writing. Chuck is like they're like more of like a proggy death metal band. This band, like Morbid Angel, is like straight like they're really chaotic. They have crazy tempo changes. A lot of the riffs are very complex. I mean, Trey will have like some crazy shuffle all over, like very articulate too, shuffling all over the board, and then he'll hit the trem, and then some the crazy tempo stuff, and it's all over the map. Which I kind of prefer that style of guitar. The way I would explain him is like I guess more of like a free form jazz guitarist with no training.
I could see
if
that
that makes
with a
sense.
lot of tremolo picking, yeah.
Especially with his lead style, which we haven't gotten into, but a lot of his riffing is just kind of all over the map with tempos, and he's hitting a lot of different things.
I could respect that.
Yeah, I see where
and
you're
I
coming
wasn't
from with
like again. I guess simplistic is the wrong word, but I just feel like in comparison to Chuck, and I don't know. I feel like with Chuck, some of his riffs get a little bit more complicated in nature and proggy and stuff. But I just feel like for like anybody, if you were to take the two bands and just listen to them, I feel like they would appeal more, especially death metal, traditional death metal. They would appease more to Morbid Angel with he grabbed the
So
listener.
I actually used my double header vote on this one, and I chose both for different reasons. I think that Trey, as I said, has the more traditional death metal riffage, and it's very brutal, in your face. But because this criteria also includes songwriting, I think that songs overall, Chuck seemed to have a better vision for his songs, and the way that they progress is a little bit more creative to me than Trey. Trey's a little bit, like I said, to me, as technical as he is, it's still more straightforward in terms of song structure and everything, whereas Chuck, every song had these big movements, and every song had these
He's
drastic changes.
definitely more melodic, and sometimes it is tougher to write a good melody in death metal. You know what I mean? Right. So I can understand what you're saying on that for sure.
Now we are on to bass. This is David Vincent versus, we chose Steve DiGiorgio. This one's easy for me. I think this is easy for all of us. Steve DiGiorgio is a monster of a bassist. He's one of the best.
Yeah, dude,
he's one of the best bass players.
One of the
planet.
first I ever heard playing fretless.
Yes.
And whereas Dave Vincent is very he's like the Tom Araya of death metal.
Yeah, I was gonna say, and just all the different colors and stuff that how intricate and stuff he gets with the records that he's on. Really, he really
truly
cuts
is
through.
the third guitarist.
Yeah,
of the
he
band.
really is.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
He definitely is a.
He adds a lot of
Almost
depth
like a
for
fo-
sure.
Yeah, it almost feels like in some points he's like a focal point.
Right,
So-
right. So this one I'm very excited for. So this is drums. My vote I gave to Pete Sandoval over Gene Hoglan.
Are you saying all these names so stupid?
Pete Sandoval? How would you say it?
Pete Sandoval. Pete Sandy Balls.
All right, whatever. I gave it to Petey because
Big old Petey Wee.
I've always found like Gene Hoglan, without a doubt, is one of the best drummers on the planet. Very fast, can be very technical. His work on Death Symbolic was phenomenal. However, I think that Pete brings so much to Morbid Angel's sound that he throws an interesting twist on every riff and kind of goes like against the grain of what you would expect. Whereas Gene, I feel specifically grading his work in Death, could have been replicated by Richard Christie or anyone else in that time. Like I think Pete could have gone into that band and played exactly what Gene was playing and done it just fine.
Sure.
And so that's why my vote goes to Pete.
I'm going to use my my double point on this. I'm going to pick both of them just because, both of them have like a pedigree that I really love. Like, Pete Sandoval was in Terrorizer, which is, one of the greatest. That album is one of the greatest grindcore albums of all time. And he was blasting before anyone.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, he really was. He was blasting before anyone. Like, Pete Sandoval's a fucking man. Gene was in Dark Angel, which is one of my favorite thrash bands of all time. So, I don't know, just based on that, I mean, in the work in Morbid Angel and Death, I love them both for what they are and what they bring to the table for both bands. So it's really hard for me to separate them, especially with their background, just because that's like a cool lore thing for me.
I mean,
so,
it's very, very cool to be a fence sitter. Wow. John?
oh my God!
I chose Gene on this one. I love both drummers. I just feel like with Symbolic, he, really put a lot of oomph behind Symbolic, very driving. And he does some cool things here out, throughout the entire album there. And I don't know, that's really, I like both drummers. I just gave the edge to Gene on this one.
Yeah,
All right.
I get it. That was a really hard one for me too.
It was actually a little bit tough for me. Again, they both do phenomenal things for both bands, and obviously have a little bit different styles. So.
Cool.
So now this brings us to solos. No, sorry. We're editing this in because I fucked up the order. So this is solos. Once again, it is Trey versus Chuck. Trey won in riffs. Mm-hmm. Josh, you being the guitarist here.
Schuldner, you're a guitarist too, but
Yeah, but you're a
Schuldner,
better guitarist.
but just because, I guess, my background is all hair metal and power metal and stuff, and I love all the shreddy melodic solos and everything. I think we mentioned earlier, kind of Morbid is the Slayer of death metal.
I was gonna say the same exact
Yeah,
thing.
Trey-
He's very Kerry King-esque player.
Yeah.
I was gonna say this too.
Way more formed solos.
100%. I'm not the biggest Slayer fan, but Trey is a more refined. Kerry King.
I said he's like a free-form jazz guitarist.
Exactly. It's the chaoticness that he brings to his solos. But
Chuck for me though, big time, just because I love melodic sounding shreddy solos. Another thing I was gonna pick Chuck onto is he and I have the same exact picking style, where it's
So do we.
three-finger reverse downward pick slant.
Yeah.
And if you watch him play, it looks stupid as fuck, and you watch me play, it looks stupid as fuck because it's fundamentally just dog
we
shit.
send each other memes about it all the
Yeah,
time.
but he manages to really pull it off, and that gave me a lot of inspiration going into my lead playing, because I can't alternate pick as fast as a lot of the dudes that I really look up to. So watching,
Trey.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. So watching him be able to maneuver through these solos and lay down something super melodic and just in general, his lead style is, I think it's a result of the way he plays, is very unique in comparison to a lot of guitar players in death metal.
So I also voted for Chuck for similar reasons. This isn't like to take points away from Trey, because I can't play like Trey. Trey is a monster of a lead player.
Trey is impossible to mimic.
Right.
Such a unique style.
But like this kind of ties into me giving a point to Chuck for his songwriting as well. The way that he formed his solos around the song, it like everything was just so perfectly attuned to the riff that he was soloing over that it was excellent.
It feels like a good hair metal solo.
Exactly.
It's like when you hear like John.
It was tasteful.
Maybe it's like when you hear a John Sykes solo on anything
Right.
off of
Right.
the '88 album.
Right. Whereas like with Trey,
87.
I felt like it was like he was putting anxiety on tape.
Yeah,
when he was recording
that
guitar
in its
solos.
own though, for what it is
Exactly.
fucking insane and awesome to listen to. It's just,
Right.
It's pure anxiety, like you
I
said.
agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
I also picked Chuck. I think for pretty much all points that were hit here. And one thing I will say is Chuck, I feel like had more soul into it. Like,
Sure.
Right,
He,
yeah,
he
absolutely.
just more passionate.
You hear his vibrato and everything.
Yeah. And I mean, just
Where Trey sounded like he was like chugging diesel fuel and
That's the Florida meth water.
Yeah,
I mean,
killing
that was
children.
that was a lot of meth that he was. I mean, dude, the dude was drinking fucking salt water and smoking meth, dude. I mean, what do you expect? Just straight up.
energy
Yeah,
drink
paint chips and
solos
gasoline.
stuff.
all right.
Whereas Trey's solos were, they definitely fit that, like, their style was a little bit more like darker, murkier. And
Right.
Oh,
it
good word.
Just,
Yeah.
his hit perfectly for their sound.
Right.
Very raw.
Yes,
Yeah.
and you can't take that away from him. But to you all's point, and it's funny because I was even thinking out on the way over here, was he is the Kerry King of death metal,
Yeah.
just more refined and I guess
Yeah.
controlled chaos. As I
Right,
say.
There you go.
Exactly.
Perfect.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
perfect
the
way to
best way to.
describe it.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, so this next section is what we're calling the X Factor section. These bands' X Factors
dude. Sex factor.
are their abundance of members that they've had throughout the years, and all-star members at that. Death has had Richard Christie, James Murphy,
Sean Reinhart. Paul
Sean
Masvidal.
Reinhart, Jorge Masvidal.
Super necessary.
Steve Tucker was in Morbid Angel and did great replacing David Vincent in my opinion. Tim Young, even though he played on what might be their worst album, Tim Young is one of the best drummers on the planet.
His work in Decrepit Birth, insane.
Yes. So, John, I'll give this one to you. Who did you give the X Factor to? Who had the better revolving door of members?
I gave it to Death. Yeah. Names aforementioned like Richard Christie. I'm just gonna say flat out, like, personally, whenever I first heard Sound of Perseverance, like, and his drumming on that, the performance, that was like eye-opening for me. Made me really appreciate like metal drumming. Not to say everything else I listened to was like, garbage or whatever, but just how involved he got. And then if you listen to the live album or any live track that he's done, like it's almost exactly how he does it on the record.
Right.
And I just grew like a massive appreciation for that. It's just so involved.
Yeah.
All the past members they've had, we mentioned the fellows that were in Cynic, and just anybody that they've had is just like chock full of talent.
Right.
And nothing against the guys in Morbid Angel. I love Steve Tucker. Tim Young
As
is.
Josh pointed out before this, Eric Rutan was also.
Yes, I was going to say
Big one,
Eric
yeah.
Rutan being on Domination, and apparently, what was the other record? I can't remember.
Oh, Formulas?
Yes.
Yeah. Watch me be wrong on that.
Yeah, I thought it was just Domination, but Yeah, I mean, again, these bands had a phenomenal amount of talent throughout
coming
their
and going.
career. Yeah, for sure.
Coming to me now, I kind of wished I would have used my double point on this one because I'm not going to, because I'm going to stick to my guns on it. I picked Morbid Angel just because I'm a huge Rutan fan, and Steve Tucker. This could be like another point of contention. But Steve Tucker, in my opinion, this is gonna sound shitty, but I feel like performance-wise, I feel like he's like almost a better vocalist than David Vincent.
Get the fuck out.
I mean, I'm talking like live performances and stuff. Yeah, like
that
for sure.
Yeah,
like,
I mean, listen to I will say I failed to mention this. Like Gateways.
Yeah.
Dude, knocked out of the park.
Yeah,
And
it's
that, like a lot of
brutal.
people,
Steve
a lot
Tucker's
of
a
people,
monster.
Yeah.
a lot of people mention that record being like their record. You know, I know
Production
there's a
on
lot
that
of-
record is phenomenal.
Yeah,
too.
it is,
I also
especially
think
for
great.
coming out in 2000.
Yeah.
I think at this point, Steve has been in the band just as long as David was. It's
Yeah.
like a very like Max Cavalera
Would think
situation.
even
is it not?
longer at this point. Yeah.
And even
Right,
what he did
yeah.
on the last record was
Oh,
really,
yeah.
really good. I love that album.
Yeah. No, very good. Even though we just got done stroking Steve Tucker's cock, I gave my vote to Death for this one, just because of the sheer amount of like star power
Yeah,
that they had in there.
huge
like,
turnover. It's just chucking a bunch of hired guns.
Right,
You know what
exactly.
I mean? So,
And like, unfortunately, that kind of plays to their benefit in this because they had this revolving door of members. They had a revolving door of talent.
Yeah, it makes sense.
We mentioned Richard Christie, Sean Reiner, like, two of the best drummers to ever play technical death metal. Chuck got both of them. James Murphy.
yeah, Ultimate Shredder. I mean,
Yeah.
even if you're looking like even further back and you're going back to Leprosy, Rick Ross was doing a bunch of crazy shit back then too.
Right.
With all this Floyd Rose work. I mean,
Right. Yeah.
he's kind of a one-trick pony, but
Yeah.
hearing that for the first time was pretty intense.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I get it.
Yeah.
I
So
get
I
it.
mean, like I said, and this was another one where just because Steve Tucker and Tim Young are both so talented, I was tempted to give my doubleheader to this as well, but I had to give it to Death.
Fair. I understand.
Yeah, you're wrong. And everyone in the comments will tell you that.
All
you're
right,
wrong.
no, I figured as much.
So that brings us to our final piece to judge them on, is their discography as a whole. We already established that these bands both had revolving doors of members. Don't give a fuck about that. We're just going over the entire discography of these bands and grading them on that and giving a point to the band of our choice based on that. Josh, I'll let you go first
So
on this
to
one.
make you look like an idiot here, Morbid Angel didn't really have a revolving door. They had, they pretty much had the same lineup through like the Holy Trinity of albums, which
yes.
alters through the Covenant. The only switch out they really had, the major switch out was losing Richard for Rutan on Domination.
Well, and then again, when they made with Dave Vincent's return,
And yeah,
Okay.
yeah, when they lost like half the band because that's when Tim Young came in.
Sure.
Yeah,
Okay. Damn it.
but no, I
Still kind of not
But I see what
wrong,
you're saying. Like
but
their
yeah.
their pinnacle of albums
Yeah,
was
so,
the same line.
your de facto lineup. For,
Yeah, did
Yeah,
their
yeah,
best
yeah.
work.
And so I feel like having that chemistry, I don't know, I did weird like spirit fingers thing, just like I feel like having that chemistry between those four guys for the first three albums, like with Morbid Angel, to me, and I know you guys will disagree with this, but I feel like every album evolved to to more of an extreme than Death's albums.
Oh, ooh.
I know you won't agree. I mean, because think about it. You think of Scream through Spiritual. Those all kind of. I mean, dude, Spiritual Healing is just kind of like piggybacking off of Leprosy a little bit. You're gonna disagree, but
spiritual hearing was kind of, or healing was when, for me, that was their like turning
But
point.
I think that's
But-
where
I feel like that's such like a that album is so just like mayonnaise though. I feel like it's so.
But like to your point, like Morbid Angel made leaps and bounds in a shorter amount of time. But like I think later on in Death's career, like even just like from like Symbolic was such a giant leap from
Yeah.
Human.
Human's my favorite though, man. The production on that album is
But
absolutely
like in terms of
insane.
like technicality and everything, and like how progressive they got, like that was such a huge jump. And then they did it again with Sound of Perseverance, however many years later. Like I agree that Morbid Angel progressed like crazy and they like evolved. But I think the same argument could be made for Death later on in their career.
So, but I guess like to get back to like the actual point of this section here is
All right, dickhead.
yeah, my bad. I fucking went off. I was like, everybody's stupid. I'm a genius. I really did pick them just because that's more of like my style of death metal. I really like the chaos, I like the complexity, I like the tempo changes, I like the I just like the chaos of it. I think it's just pure death metal. You know what I mean? I don't feel like it's really fair to judge anything past the 90s for Morbid Angel, just because Death only really got like up to 98, right?
Well, this show isn't fair.
Oh.
That's, yeah.
Okay, well
not
then-
fair. We just compared David Vincent to Steve DiGiorgio. Now you want to bring in fairness?
Okay, I guess. All right, but yeah, just for me, I think it's all subjective, right? So
No, absolutely. I mean, that's the point of all
yeah,
this.
that's just more of my taste. So
All right. I also voted for Morbid Angel.
it sucked for you, dude.
Just because, like, just like you, I gravitate more towards that style of death metal. I'm not a big prog fan, but also, in my own personal preference, I would listen to Altars and Domination on repeat. I've probably listened to those albums more than I've ever listened to a single, or Death's entire discography. And I'm a big Death fan as well, but with Death, it's more, I like songs from the albums. This might be blasphemy, there isn't a single Death album that I like from like cover to cover.
No, fuck you, Chuck.
So John, who did you pick for the discography?
For the discography, I picked. That's actually where I used my double header.
I thought you already used it. No? Okay, sorry.
You
My bad.
used
Yeah,
ours.
yeah.
This is where I used my double header again. Huge fan of both these bands. It's really hard for me to pick. I think when I want, it's obviously like if I'm wanting to listen to something a little bit more brutal, heavier, I'm obviously steering more towards Morbid Angel. If I'm wanting to listen to something a little bit, involved, emotional, yeah, for sure, Death. And as I mentioned in the very beginning, love both these bands, huge influences for me. Actually, Dave was part of the reason why one of the reasons why I picked up bass, when I first started learning that.
I could do that.
But, yeah, exactly. Maybe I can.
I can have a goatee. This is fucking stupid.
Yeah, John was 12.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude.
I look just like him.
Yeah.
So,
Just FYI, all of our feet are off the ground right now. We had to get a really big couch for him.
again, it was too hard for me to decide, so that's why I went with the.
All right. Well, that wraps that. So, tally up the scores. Well, there you have it. It is a dead-ass tie right down the middle. It is not how I want to start the first episode. I really wanted to piss people off. How do you guys feel about, basically we just scientifically proved that Death and Morbid Angel are equal.
Yeah, this is undeniable science. These are facts. Our opinions matter much more than yours because we're behind the camera.
We're in front of the camera, dipshit. We'll see you next time. Thank you to my guests, Josh and John. Yeah, take it easy.